Debí tirar más fotos de cuando te tuve, debí darte más besos.
Bad Bunny is a global phenomenon, but is his version of Bomba actually erasing its rich traditional roots? That's the question setting the internet on fire right now. What started as a simple critique turned into a full-blown cultural debate. Is modern music sacrificing cultural heritage just to appeal to the mainstream? It all kicked off when creator Black Tina Media said Bad Bunny whitewashed Bomba, and TikTok exploded.
I told you guys Bomba is going through a whitewashing process. The music and dance created by enslaved Africans in Puerto Rico is now being repackaged and becoming pan-Latino. Let's talk about it. My name is Nydia Simone, and I'm the founder of Black Tina Media, where we amplify Afro-Latino and Afro-Caribbean narratives in film, TV, and art. Okay, so I talked about this in my class, The Whitewashing of Black Latino Music. We covered bomba, reggaeton, Afro-Latin jazz, tango, yo no sé, like, check. The replay and the study guide is on sale. It's a 2-hour class. Sorry, but it's a listening class. Anyway, I talk about this in the class that Bomba is in the middle of the whitewashing process. Tango has already been whitewashed. It's already done. But Bomba is in the middle and it's at a critical time. Will it be successful? Probably. But I think it's really important to watch as it happens. So these are the 3 ways it's being whitewashed. First of all, do y'all even know what Bomba is? I don't know. Okay, ¿qué es Bomba? Bomba is a dance and music that was created by enslaved Africans in Puerto Rico. This is something that literally could get you in jail or seen as a vagrant for practicing the dance. Kind of like created a sense of identity, resilience. Stories were told during these spaces. It's kind of like a whole experience. It's not just a dance the way like merengue is like. Merengue. Bomba is like a whole experience. So look more into it, but Bomba is African. So the first thing, I feel like the first way it gets whitewashed is the distortion of the history. I watched a video with a very charismatic person who was trying to put Taino history in Bomba. So that's like the first distortion and inaccuracy is Bomba's African. Bomba's not Taino, never was, never will be, period. This idea that, it's Spanish. Spanish people don't do Bomba. African, Black people do Bomba. You have to be Black to do Bomba. This is our art. This is our lineage. This is our history. It's really interesting that some of like the oldest storytellers and just holders of the culture have been completely ignored. Like, I'm surprised, like, the Ayala family is not involved in all the non-Black Latino Bomba stuff. It's like, you guys want to be seen as authentic. Why not include this family? Other ways the whitewashing process is taking place, the idea of like having like a Bomba party, a Bomba night, not having any Black people there, not having any Afro Boricuas. So like you're celebrating the culture, but you don't have nobody from the culture there. And you don't even really know anything about the culture. So this idea that Bad Bunny could potentially do Bomba at the Super Bowl is really more of a testament to the whitewashing of Bomba than anything else. It doesn't mean that Black artists are going to do better or have a different experience. It just means another white man is doing Black music on stage and getting paid for it. Okay, guys. Anyway.
Some people agreed. Others came for her neck. And suddenly, the argument wasn't even about Bad Bunny. It became a debate about identity, what it means to be Puerto Rican, what it means to be Black, and who gets to claim African heritage. But here's the thing. The conversation is bigger than Bad Bunny. It's about the deep history of how Puerto Rico and Latin America as a whole manages race, and how that management has repeatedly led to the erasure of Blackness. So in this video, I'm breaking it down. What Black Tina meant when she said Bomba was being whitewashed. Why the comment hit such a nerve. and how Puerto Rico's three-race ideology still shapes how we see blackness today. Let's start with what Black Tina actually said. Her point wasn't that Puerto Ricans can't do Bomba. It's that Bomba, an Afro Puerto Rican cultural expression, has been rebranded in mainstream media through a pan-Latino lens that centers whiteness. In other words, this we're all mixed narrative, this idea of being Taino, Spanish, and African all at once, sounds inclusive, but often erases the real experiences and struggles of Black and Indigenous people. She's talking about a racial formula that's been used for centuries in Latin America and the Caribbean to say we're all one people while quietly keeping whiteness at the top. And that's what Black Tina was getting at. Bomba gets celebrated when it's done by somebody who fits the Criollo ideal. Lighter skin, palatable, marketable. But you also better not call it Afro-Puerto Rican. You better not highlight the history. You better not mention the African spirituality behind it. There's always this pressure to make Bomba neutral, to make it for everyone, to strip away anything that sounds too Black, too African, too specific. And the excuse people use is always, well, people know where it comes from. No, they don't. You might know it because you grew up around it, or you studied it, or even practiced it. But the people currently consuming Bomba for the first time through places like TikTok, tourist shows, commercial and performances, they don't know anything about the origins unless someone tells them. Most people are being exposed to Bomba for the first time through sanitized versions, through aesthetics, not history. So the idea that everyone already knows is just another way to justify diminishing, flattening, or hiding the African roots that make Bomba what it is. That's why this conversation about preserving and naming its African heritage is so important, especially now as Bomba becomes global. And to be real, I've actually seen what Black Tina is talking about. Whenever we post a Bomba video online, people, or at least somebody, will jump in the comments to correct us for saying Bomba was created by enslaved Africans. They'll say things like, Bomba is Puerto Rican. We're all three races. We don't do that here. I've even heard of instructors being asked to hide the African spirituality roots to Bomba to make it more palatable for tourist or mainstream audiences. That's literally whitewashing. It's important to remember Bomba wasn't always celebrated. At one point, it was looked down upon, even criminalized. It was seen as low class, Black, and dangerous, so that the idea that everyone just so proudly claimed Bomba from the start just isn't true. And then when the comments online were people trying to balance the history, saying things like Bomba was created by Spanish, Taino, and African, stating that the barrels came from Spain, as if Africans hadn't been using wooden barrels and drums creatively for centuries. Let's be real. These enslaved people were dancing to evoke the spirit of their ancestors, to give them strength, to continue to survive what they were currently enduring. Giving credit to the oppressor for creating an environment that these people were forced to develop their resiliency and grit that manifested itself into Bomba is 100% a colonized mindset. This is what happens when people force this pan-Latino narrative. They start reaching for connections that aren't there, giving credit to groups who didn't create it, and watering down the African contributions that built the foundation. That's exactly the type of revisionist history that's allowing whitewashing to thrive. What Spain provided was not influence, it was oppression. There's a critical difference. When we say that two cultures influence one another, what we usually mean is that there's an exchange of ideas. They shared traditions, they collaborated, they blended aesthetics voluntarily. None of that happened between Spain and the people who created Bomba. Enslaved Africans were not in a mutual cultural dialogue with Spaniards. They were being coerced, restricted, forced to adapt certain tools, and prohibited from freely practicing their own traditions. That is not influence. That is a form of domination. Bomba was created in spite of Spain, not because of Spain. Spanish language, Spanish barrels, Spanish proximity. Those were colonial conditions, not cultural contributions. Just because you control the land, the resources, and the body of the enslaved people does not mean you influence the art they created. It means they made genius out of whatever scraps they were allowed to have. You would never say white Americans influenced the blues just because black Americans had to sing English on European instruments about the suffering caused by white supremacy. So why do we twist ourselves into knots trying to credit Spain for Bomba? Colonizers create conditions. The oppressed create culture. What Spain did was not influence. A better descriptor to explain what happened will be survival adaptation under colonial violence. The rhythm of resistance. That is what is Bomba. And here's the part people conveniently overlooked in Black Tina's comment. She wasn't attacking Puerto Ricans. She was asking a real necessary question. As Bomba gets shared worldwide, what steps are we taking to ensure its African heritage is being reserved, protected, and properly credited? That's it. That's the whole point. But instead of engaging with that question, people got triggered and defensive, as if the suggestion of protecting African Puerto Rican heritage was some kind of attack. And the reaction alone says a lot. I get it. Content creators use hooks. We use strong phrases to spark curiosity and pull people into deeper conversations. But being that upset over a conversation focused on honoring Bomba's roots, that's wild to me. Because here's the truth. Every single Bomba performance or circle I've ever attended, the instructor made it a point to stop the music, engage the audience, and explain what Bomba is and what it is rooted in. They don't just assume people know, because we all know people don't know. So when folks online say everyone knows Bomba is African, we don't have to explain that. That's simply not true. If we didn't need to explain it, I wouldn't constantly see people arguing that Bomba came from the Tainos, or that the drums were a gift from Spain, or that Bomba is equally mixed between all three races. You have to share the history every single time. That's how culture survives. That's how heritage stays intact when it goes global. And that's all Black Tina was pointing out. Protecting culture requires intentionality, not assumptions. And if you think this is about Bomba, it's not. We've seen it before with samba, reggaeton. Black creativity is often the foundation. But once it gains popularity, it's rebranded to look universal, which usually means lighter and more exportable. Even reggaeton, which started in Black working class communities of Panama and Puerto Rico, became global only once artists who fit the industry beauty standard, lighter, straight hair, ambiguous looking, became the faces of it. And ironically, that's the space where Bad Bunny rose. He's talented, don't get me wrong, very creative, and yes, he's used his platform to advocate for Puerto Ricans. But his politics rarely center racial justice or anti-Blackness within Puerto Rico. So when people try to label him as a Black man because he dances bomba, or he's Puerto Rican so he must have African blood, it's delusional. That's not how identity or solidarity works. Bad Bunny isn't single-handedly responsible for this dynamic, but he does benefit from it. He can incorporate African diasporic music and visuals and still be seen as universal, marketable, safe. Meanwhile, darker-skinned Afro Puerto Rican artists struggle to even get that platform. And that's the real conversation here. So when we talk about whitewashing Bomba, we're not saying that Puerto Ricans can't dance their own music. We're asking who gets celebrated when they do it and who gets erased in that process. Because culture without context becomes a costume. And when we forget where things come from, we risk repeating the same colonial patterns, just with better marketing. The conversation isn't about attacking anyone. It's about remembering the roots and giving credit where it's long overdue. If this conversation opened up something for you, don't stop here. The next video I have lined up breaks down the 3-race myth, and trust me, it connects every dot. Until next time, stay beautiful, stay blessed, stay black. This is Jade, and you're watching Get Into the Black. Bye-bye.